How far will you go to save the one you love? That's the question asked in Heavy Rain, a very cinematic, very movie-esque PlayStation 3 game created by Quantic Dreams and written by David Cage. The entire film, or rather, I should say the entire game, is very dependent on several actions combined with quick-time events, all meant to get across a very cinematic story that takes place from the perspectives of multiple characters. The first one, noticeably, being Ethan Mars, a man who tragically lost his first child in an awful accident, only to have his second child forcibly stolen away from him by the infamous origami killer, who kidnaps children and drowns them in rainwater. Another character who you also play as is FBI agent Norman Jayden, whose job it is to hunt down the origami killer by any means necessary, using his keen mind and fascinating investigative tools, as well as also playing as Detective Scott Shelby and investigative journalist Madison Page. All of them have their own different stories which play out within the game, and the various actions that you choose and dialogue options will all end up having consequences that will play out later in the game. In fact, supporting characters can actually die if you don't act quickly enough to save them. The entire game is very beautifully rendered by the PlayStation 3's graphics, and although slightly corny and cheesy in some areas of the game, I honestly felt that the acting is very, very well done, especially all things considered. It's a difficult thing to get across good cinematic acting in a video game. It's not as easy as you might think, but I think for the most part it's pulled off very darn well, and in some cases the cheesiness is actually kind of charming. But above all, the game oozes atmosphere. All of it is not just cinematic in how it comes across, but in how it immerses you in the world that it's built up. You feel as if you're in the middle of a movie, and you actually feel like your actions do have consequences. There's an immense amount of loving detail that's put into every environment that you investigate. But be forewarned, because you can't always just lollygag around. Many times, the main character that you're playing as will in fact be put in danger, and you have to use your controller and shake it or move it in order to help get your character out of a very tight spot that may very well prove, in fact, fatal. From fighting off a psychopath that has you at gunpoint, to just trying to bust out of a killer's apartment, to desperately try and escape from a blazing inferno, there's a variety of life and death situations that only you have the power to overcome. But you gotta be careful, you gotta be ready to press the right buttons, and you gotta be smart, because what might seem like the obvious solution is not always the right solution. Another thing I really want to compliment is the soundtrack. God, I love good video game soundtracks. I so want it. So many of the tracks are beautifully haunting and complement the game just so damn well. You should really check it out. But of course, this isn't the only good thing about the game. Another very interesting part is the investigative portions with FBI agent Norman Jayden, because he's able to use an advanced reality interface to blend virtual reality and the world around him in order to look for clues that will help him track down the origami killer. And frankly, this is something that I really wish is included in more future games by Quantic Dream. But a word of warning, the game is rated M for a reason, not just for some curse language or a bit of nudity. Oh no, there's a lot of serious violence in this as well, and some disturbing themes, so you gotta be ready for it. This game is not for little kiddies. No siree. Finally, there's multiple endings for each character than you can get, and believe me when I say that what might seem like the best ending might not necessarily be the best ending, so be careful with the choices you make. Ultimately, if you don't mind some quick time events and a little bit more emphasis of cinematics over gameplay, then you should definitely, absolutely get this game. Check it out whenever you can.